Nobody anticipated that Aryna Sabalenka would be under investigation for using unethical methods against Eala. Yes, Sabalenka, the dominant force in women's tennis, has come under fire for what transpired against the up-and-coming Filipina player. One whispered grumble, one instant on the court, and the whole game turned upside down. Fans felt the shockwave reverberate across the arena in addition to sensing anxiousness. Because Sabalenka's actions that evening didn't appear to be typical gamesmanship. Everything seemed planned, including the long pauses, the stare-downs, and the subtle gestures. And the audience sensed something was really wrong when Eala eventually faced the chair umpire. Tennis authorities were compelled to intervene as screenshots proliferated and accusations intensified. The question is now straightforward. Was Sabalenka merely acting in a competitive manner? Or did she pass a boundary from which she is unable to return? Long before the dispute erupted, everything started. Long before hashtags, screenshots, and probes dominated the timeline. It starts during the quiet period in between competitions. That place where ambition sharpens, where pressure rises softly, forging champions and rivals alike. Aryna Sabalenka has dedicated years to making a fiery and vicious name for herself in the sport. Her ascent was swift, her presence was indisputable, and she was a whirlwind of strength and determination. Her sheer, unadulterated force won her admirers. Her opponents were afraid of her ability to control a match with just a fierce serve and a look. She was the norm, not simply a high seed. However, upheaval is a part of every era. And for Sabalenka, it came in the shape of Alexandra Eala, the daring Filipina phenomenon whose ascent felt more like an explosion than a climb. Eala shouldn't have threatened the tour at this early stage. Veterans who had served 10 years in the trenches were not intended to compete with her. However, she managed to do so. The hierarchy appeared to tremble with each step she took into the spotlight. The composure that elite players thought they controlled was further undermined by each upset she produced. Yes, she played with youth, but she also did so in a risky way. Conviction. Genuine, palpable sense that she was a member of the elite. And even the toughest champions can be shaken by such a mindset. The kind of whispers that start in locker rooms, simmer in press conferences, and blow out online started to circulate as Eala's momentum increased. Was she getting up too fast? Was her self-assurance being misinterpreted as conceit? Or was there something more profound going on? Tension between Eala and Sabalenka didn't just appear suddenly. It started quietly. A clipped word here, a chilly handshake there. There was enough for supporters to start murmuring, but nothing that anyone could definitely point to. Why does Sabalenka always appear agitated? Does Eala's name appear? Is this rivalry personal or genuine? The atmosphere was already tense when the tour arrived at their joint event. An experienced woman protecting her domain. A novice who won't bow. Two meteors headed for each other. You could sense the excitement when they eventually ran into one another again, even before the supposed dirty methods and the purported probe. This wasn't the energy shift that athletes talk about. Beneath their feet, a fault line was developing. With a smile on her face and a positive attitude, Eala walked into the courtroom. With her shoulders squared and her jaw clenched like a warrior entering a well-known conflict, Sabalenka walked with a stone visage. Commentary was not necessary for crowds to comprehend what they were seeing. The plot was revealed by the first few rallies alone. Dominance against hunger, power against accuracy, and intensity against instinct. For the first time in a long time, Sabalenka felt challenged by a teenager with nothing to lose and everything to prove rather than by a Grand Slam champion or a top 5 opponent. You could see the fracture developing in those early exchanges, not in their games, but in their dynamic. Eala's poise seemed to arouse in Sabalenka a sense of territoriality and stubbornness that murmured, "She's not taking my spot." It was just the start. The tension was high enough to cut with a racket even before the match had reached its pivotal moment. What took place after that? This is when the contentious gestures, accusations, and storm that would force Sabalenka into a fictitious probe began. One court, two players, an impending rivalry. Furthermore, the world was still unaware that this was more than just another contest. It was the spark that would set everything on fire. As soon as the second set started, something changed. Something delicate yet potent enough to change the mood of the entire court. No one could adequately explain it. Everyone could sense it, not the pundits, analysts, or even the fans seated in the upper rows, because Sabalenka, who is often a stronghold of poise and intimidation, abruptly started acting differently. The pacing was the first step. Before a serve, Sabalenka bounced the ball 15, 16, and occasionally 17 times, extending her preparation beyond normal limits. I noticed, the umpire noticed, and fans noticed. It initially appeared to be nervousness, the kind that can occasionally affect even the most seasoned athletes. Then came the glances, which were timed, crisp, and clearly deliberate. Sabalenka was not known for his typical competitive stare-downs. No, these targeted Eala's rhythm directly and were cooler. Eala stiffened her body language. She slowed her service motion. The confidence of a young athlete can be brittle, and Sabalenka appeared to be pushing the boundaries. The moment that altered everything then arrived. I turned to the chair umpire midway through a heated rally, not to protest or dispute, but because Sabalenka had made a deep, guttural growl just as I was about to swing. It wasn't your typical grunt. The rally didn't even include it. It seemed to be timed. Resetting her feet, Eala hesitated. The whisper began when Sabalenka stood erect at the baseline, his expression unreadable. What was that? Did she intentionally do that? Is Sabalenka attempting to interfere with her? One strange moment wouldn't normally get much attention, but this was just the start. Sabalenka again postponed her serve on the very next point, this time by almost 30 seconds rather than just a few seconds. As the audience became agitated, she moved to her towel, returned to the baseline, and then stopped, looking straight at Eala. Eala adjusted her weight, not knowing if she should wait or reset. More glances of frustration, more whispers. Sabalenka halted in mid-step, caught the ball, and grinned when she eventually hurled the ball for the serve. It was a small gesture, but when it was captured on slow-motion replay, it ignited social media. Online, screenshots started to circulate. Eala is being stared down by Sabalenka. Sabalenka is taking too long. Play is being disrupted by Sabalenka. As if compiling evidence in a courtroom, fans began to piece together each moment. Is she employing unethical methods? Why is Sabalenka behaving in this manner? Eala is deserving of better. When Eala eventually raised her hand to the umpire, the tension on the court erupted. Not dramatic, not angry, simply worn out. She was fed up with the interruptions, the delays, and the attempt to act as though she didn't feel the psychological pressure. The umpire gave a nod, indicating Sabalenka will go without pausing. And the crowd, which had been impartial up until now, started to change. Waves of unease followed a few whispers of displeasure. The arena was beginning to feel like a silent storm. The frustration was only getting started for Sabalenka as well. The very competitive and prideful veteran disliked being called out. She rolled her shoulders, gripped her racket more tightly, and muttered something under her breath that was barely picked up by the microphones, but enough to subsequently trigger an explosion. Commentators pretended not to notice, but the match ceased to be a match when Eala's demeanor slightly shifted and the spectators recognized something had been said. It turned into a battleground. The weight of each point increased. Every pause was suspicious. Every glance seemed like a charge that was about to explode. Fans eventually identified this tight coil of tension as the trigger. The point at which Sabalenka's actions became dubious. Eala was playing two opponents at that moment. The one on the other side of the net and the one within her own head. The moment that will shortly lead to a fake inquiry. Because things got worse after that. What transpired outside was nuclear if the tension inside the stadium was explosive. As soon as video snippets from the game appeared on social media, Sabalenka had no control over the story. Everyone had an opinion, including journalists, fans, and past players, and none of them kept it to themselves. Within minutes, what had begun as quiet murmurs in the audience turned into a full-fledged online fury. It started with just one clip. Mid-serve, Sabalenka paused, smirked, and looked at Eala before leaving to reset once more. It was described as mind games or dirty tactics in a slow-motion repost on X, formerly Twitter. The video received more than 500,000 views in just 1 hour. Then came the moment before Eala's stroke, when Sabalenka seemed to moan. A slight interruption in real time, but clearly noticeable in playback. Fans added subtitles, froze frames, and zoomed in. Each detail was added to the increasing amount of evidence. "This isn't competitiveness," wrote a popular tennis blogger. "It's psychological warfare. If a younger player did this to Sabalenka, she'd explode," another fan commented. Even unbiased analysts started to comment by late afternoon. "Gamesmanship is part of the sport, but there are limits," tweeted a former professional who was well known for her cool head. This crossed one, and the wildfire grew uncontrollable as the pundits weighed in. Minute-by-minute updates to reaction channels.